Hi, I'm going to tell you what Trump is doing. And at the end of this video, it will all come together for you. Let me start with the Monroe Doctrine. The Monroe Doctrine is planned to create a U.S. sphere of influence. The doctrine, first articulated by President James Monroe in 1823, established the foundational tenet of U.S. foreign policy: that the Western Hemisphere constituted an exclusive sphere of influence closed off to further European colonization. This declaration was built on four principal pillars: explicitly prohibiting European powers from establishing new colonies in the Americas, a reciprocal commitment by the U.S. to avoid interference in existing European conflicts or their remaining colonies, defining any attempt by Europe to oppress or control independent nations in the hemisphere as a hostile act against the United States, and finally, the formal recognition of the new Latin American or South American republics. Before I go further, could you please leave a like and subscribe to give me an idea of the topics you are most interested in? Okay, let me explain how this doctrine translates into today's Trump policies. Point: the new Trump national security strategy reinterprets this historical stance, viewing the entire Western Hemisphere primarily through the lens of protecting the U.S. homeland and asserting that border security is the primary element of national security. This approach mandates a significantly larger and permanent U.S. military presence to counter migration, drug flows, and the rising influence of adversarial foreign powers in America's immediate backyard. Trump has also incorporated the Hitler component, which involves the bleaching of America. Trump has publicly now laid out his new plan for the world. Let me explain, and you will see how it is based on the Monroe Doctrine. The Trump administration's foreign policy is codified in the Trump Corollary, a 29-page blueprint, a terrifying new security doctrine which turns Canada and all of the Western Hemisphere into a target. Trump's published Corollary is based on the Monroe Doctrine. It is a firm declaration that the United States must be preeminent in the Western Hemisphere for its own security and prosperity. This strategy represents a wholesale shift, turning away from global entanglements to focus intensely on controlling its own sphere. Trump's corollary demands that the terms of all U.S. alliances and foreign aid are contingent on eliminating adversarial outside influence, specifically targeting foreign control of key military installations, ports, and strategically defined assets in the Americas. This renewed focus necessitates deploying significantly more military power, including a more suitable Coast Guard and Navy presence to control sea lanes, thwart migration, and secure transit routes. Now, do you see how this is all coming together? Beyond defense, the plan calls for partnering with the private sector. And I suggest to you, in South America, this means the drug cartels as well, to promote strategic acquisition and investment opportunities for American companies. The endgame is to secure access to vital resources like rare earth minerals. Globally, the strategy adopts a transactional stance, arguing that the affairs of other nations concern the U.S. only if they directly threaten its interests, while delivering harsh, veiled warnings to European allies about civilizational decline due to migration, signaling a new era of aggressive, unilateral self-interest. Trump's has a very specific plan for South America. The administration's aggressive approach in South America is not a simple war on drugs, but calculated acts to establish a cartel protection racket disguised as a noble cause. The strategic deployment of military assets to target Nicolas Maduro's regime is simply because Maduro has centralized the Venezuelan drug trade into a military government monopoly, pushing the other established South American drug cartels out of Venezuela. This war on drugs is complemented by political moves that protect U.S.-aligned cartel facilitators, such as the Brazilian Supreme Court believes the U.S. was involved in the escape attempt where Bolsonaro's ankle bracelet was cut. Bolsonaro went missing for 2 hours while his home is just a short distance from the U.S. Embassy. And also, the astonishing Trump pardon of a former Honduran president convicted of running a major drug superhighway after serving only 1 year of a 45-year sentence. And I must also point out a further cementing of the South American drug partnership with the massive $40 billion financial lifeline given to Argentinian President Milei. securing another partner who allows these established cartels to thrive. I knew when Trump began his second term as president, soon after the inauguration, that the firing of the head of the U.S. Coast Guard was for a purpose that we would see in the future. Now we know it was the beginning of Trump installing obedient leaders deliberately weakening U.S. drug import defenses, creating a clear runway for narcotics to flow, ultimately securing the profits for the favored criminal networks and their geopolitical allies. Installing drug cartel-friendly leaders in South America under Trump control? South America will become Trump's toy of oil and drug monies. So what is the Canada-Panama-Greenland component? This strategic geopolitical consolidation, termed continentalism, is intended to make the U.S. supreme in its hemisphere, displacing the post-war global order. This is evident in the bold and aggressive pursuit of key territories, the threats of economic coercion against Denmark to acquire Greenland for its rare earth minerals and strategic Arctic routes, the musings on annexing Canada to secure the vast northern resources, and the expressed interest in seizing the Panama Canal to eliminate perceived Chinese influence over the vital waterway. Even the symbolic renaming of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America reinforces this claim of complete and uncontested sovereignty over the continent's strategic sea lanes. And then along comes Prime Minister Carney on his white horse. Mark Carney's strategy to stop the Trump world vision of the Monroe Doctrine is a calculated pivot toward geopolitical diversification, intentionally weaving Canada into a robust European security and trade architecture to reduce dependence on the volatile U.S. relationship. This is embodied by key moves like signing a security and defense partnership with the EU and joining the multi-billion-dollar Security Action for Europe, SAFE rearmament initiative, which provides access to non-U.S. military technology and procurement opportunities, thereby lessening the reliance on the American industrial military base, a dependence Trump often leverages for political coercion. Concurrently, the commitment to building a strong Canadian military, with increased defense spending and modernization plans like Inflection Point 2025, strengthens Canada's own Arctic sovereignty and defensive capabilities, directly countering Trump's plans. Carney's policies are essential to protect Canada's sovereignty, meaning in essence, to save our country from an American takeover. Attention please. The Trump Doctrine emerges as a dangerous and calculated shift toward a 19th century model of great power dominance. It is dangerous because Trump is recklessly alienating close allies like Canada and Denmark, undermining international law by threatening to seize sovereign territory, and empowering global criminal organizations through selective enforcement, highlighting a crime-friendly new international underground digital currency to be used as the new bank for international criminal payoffs and money laundering. It is calculated because it radically recenters U.S. power on the Western Hemisphere to secure all vital resources and routes against foreign competitors. Now listen up and hear this. This blueprint for an America First world will ultimately lead to a global system of kings, oligarchs, and paupers, the elite, both American and Trump's new foreign political allies, which are now Canada's and Europe's enemies, and the powerful international rich corporations are protected and enriched through strategic resource control, and a thriving, protected narcotics trade. Conversely, the smaller nations and the general populace become the paupers, suffering under the strain of unilateral economic coercion, political instability, and the unchecked power of dominant geopolitical and criminal enterprises. God help us.